Hi, it's Jane, and I'm back to working on this. Determined I'm gonna get it finished this year. I will tell you, Ronan has been a real pickle. He has been trying to play with this and snag it, and he's got all kinds of pulls in it, or he's playing and biting it. And even though I keep it up from him, every once in a while he finds a way to get it out of the bag. I'm telling you, cats. Sometimes they can be rather annoying. But I wouldn't trade them for the world. That is true. Realized I was doing single crochets. I don't know why. Sometimes I don't understand what my mind is going through. I was talking with someone the other day. I had made mention of I still have prayer ADD. My mind goes all over the place, even though I'm asking the Lord to calm it down and, get it to stay focused. Sometimes that's not in the cards. I think that's the way I am with crafts. I just can't focus on just one. So I tend to do a lot of different ones. That makes for interesting way to get things done. As you can see, I made a big old ball mess. Ripping it out, I didn't wind it up or anything, and I should have. Learn from my mistakes, folks. So the Pope has died. And I think it's funny, the left is blaming J.D. Vance for his death. I'm not sure how you could blame him for his death, especially since the Pope had a whole lot of health issues to begin with. And I'm sure he was probably septic with his pneumonia and, lung problems, those kind of things. But I guess we'll see if it's the, if that, was it the 12 Pope prophecy or whatever it is going to come true. A lot of people signify that he was supposed to be the last Pope before ushering in the great evil one, the Antichrist. So I guess we'll find that out. Although I have a lot of friends who were post-Catholic. I mean, they're no longer Catholic. Who swear that this Pope was the Antichrist, but I don't know. I do just find it interesting. So those of you that are mourning the loss of the Pope, I am sorry for your loss, but we'll be waiting for that white smoke coming up the next couple of days, won't we? See who the next fellow's going to be. I have been busy cutting fabric, culling fabric, for a new round of bags, and I've been wanting to do a different type of bag, so I am working on developing a pattern for that. I have in my mind what I would like, and so now it's just a matter of getting it worked through to see if it is feasible. And generally when I create a first handbag, I do what I call a muslin mock-up. I have a lot of people that will donate to me their old torn up jeans. So I generally use that as a mock-up for my patterns. I don't know if I will for this one because it's going to be a little bit bigger pattern. So I may use a like quilt backing something that I might use as a quilt backing for that mock-up. But we'll see. It'll be fun and interesting to see how it goes. I think I have heard that a lot of the Joann's are now completely closed. I don't know if that's true in your area or not. I do not know in my area. We did lose our one that was in Williamsport a couple of months ago. But I don't know if the one in State College is completely closed or not. And just haven't been that way. So I guess I could have stopped on Friday on the way home from the Way of the Cross. Just didn't cross my mind to do that. I have to laugh because I was greeter this Sunday at church. And one thing that I always think is funny is Easter Sunday and Christmas services, people come out of the woodwork for the church service. So, and I know some of that is family visiting, and generally family that's coming in with their family visiting will introduce you to that family, so kind of get an idea of who they are and that kind of thing. But what I'm always amazed at is the turnout on those days. You can turn out for special days, but not every day of your life. I don't know. And then cracks me up because ran out of bulletins pretty quickly. And I was at the back door, wasn't at one of the front doors. And there, we have a roamer that comes around and he's picking up, here and there. And I'm like, whoa, you need to leave me some. We don't have any up front. And I always wonder why whoever has those printed out on Christmas and Easter does not print out more than the normal amount. And our bulletins, generally there is when you open up, you have the insert that has things that are coming up next couple of weeks, whatever, different Bible studies or, Sunday school classes or any kind of announcements that they want to put in there. And then generally on the back is basically what the sermon is going to be about, and there's a place for you to take notes. Has a couple of key points where it's kind of started, and then you just fill in the rest, fill in the notes. Well, I'm always taking a notebook, just a composition notebook, and take notes while in sermon. Helps me to focus a little bit more on the sermon, and that's why I do that. Otherwise, I would probably be knitting or crocheting. I know there are a couple of people in church who do knit, crochet during the sermon because it helps them focus. I choose not to crochet or knit just because I want to take notes. And sometimes I refer back to it when I get home to look up some of the passages that they mentioned that, they didn't read out loud, those kind of things. But like I said, it always amazes me. They don't print enough bulletins. And so many people just don't, just a few come. That kind of thing. And I will tell you, yesterday they wound up putting in extra seats. They brought in some of the folding chairs from our multi-purpose room. Probably set up an additional 40 chairs, maybe 20 chairs, 20 on each side. It's 40 chairs. Because there were that many people that showed up. instead of moving them in to where, because there were a couple of seats here and there, that were empty that people could have moved in, could have sat up. But a lot of people don't like sitting up front, up close. I don't care as long as I'm there. I look at it like this. I get to go to church. I get to sit and listen and that kind of stuff. And I know, I don't know if I've told you this or not. My uncle is a pastor. I think he's retired now. Maybe he hasn't. Pastor at a church in Weatherford, Texas. And whenever we would go visit, I would sit on the front row and try to distract him. Make faces at him or, wiggle or whatever. And try to see if I could get him to crack up and laugh. I got him to do it once. And of course, he turned it right back on me because the congregation knew what I was doing. They would, he would stop, and this one time he did crack up. He goes, "Y'all, I need for you to pray for my niece. She's got a little demon in her." So we had a good laugh about that, and he used to tease me because I didn't eat breakfast. I rarely ate breakfast. I mean, that just, I don't know what it is, but lots of times when I wake up in the morning, I'm kind of nauseous and always have been, even as a kid, so I wouldn't eat breakfast. But, later on in the service, you'd hear my stomach growling. So he would say to me, "I can hear that demon in your belly just a-going." So we used to play off each other, give each other grief, that kind of thing. My parents were not Christians. They did not go to church. They did quite a few Bible studies, but none of them truly believed. So the reason I started going to church is because I, broke off those pussy willows off of my third grade teacher's bush. She made me come over and learn how to care for the plants and her flower garden and weed eating, which I was good at. I used to do that at home. And also grade papers for her third grade classes, so I did that. But she also went to church, her and her mother, and they used to pick up kids, take them to church. So she would pick up me and my sisters and take us to church. And I've always gone to church. I mean, there was a short period that I did not go to church. And mainly that was after my mother had passed away. I was kind of angry and didn't have a whole lot of people that could answer a lot of questions that I had, so didn't go to church. And then, of course, after my mother had passed away, we'd moved to Arkansas, and then we lived in Roswell, New Mexico. And then we moved back to where my father was from, which is Fort Smith, Arkansas. And that was okay, but I think I only went to church with my Nana maybe once or twice. Just chose to stay home, read, that kind of thing at home. And then my father met someone, married her, and then they decided to move back to Roswell so I could finish off my high school years at Roswell High. And there I met my best friend in high school, Sharon Vaughn. We became very close, and Sharon was a believer. She took me to church. She taught me a lot about the Bible. We did a lot of talking. Didn't really read the Bible. But, I was learning. And finally in high school, surrendered my life to Christ. Followed him for quite some time, and then I kind of fell away. Although I was still wanting to go to church. My kids and I did go to church for quite some time. Then it became hard to get to church just because of the issues that was going on in my life. And, husband was alcoholic and drug addicted. This isn't Thomas, this is my first husband. And verbally abusive. And believe it or not, in New Mexico, Sunday mornings, bars were open, and he would take the car, making it impossible for me and the kids to get to church. And so, I just kind of lived my life, going along as I could. And then, of course, my husband and I, finally it got to a point I couldn't take any more of the drinking, cheating, carousing. It was always, he was going out every night. He wasn't being a good father, wasn't just, there was a lot of issues. So there was one day he had decided that he was going to go stay with friends because he wasn't sure what he wanted. And that was a perfect out for me. So even then, God did provide some guidance and things. I didn't often turn to him. Wasn't until my later years, and Thomas and I got together, and Thomas followed a more of a pagan lifestyle, but we loved each other. And I'd gone back to church and was going to church. Now, Thomas grew up in the Presbyterian church, so, he'd said something about maybe you should go, to the Presbyterian church. And the prayer shawl group that I go to was at the Presbyterian church, so I was going to that church for quite some time. And then, of course, when Thomas was going through his cancer and chemo and all of that, there was some emotional support. But the one thing that was missing is it was not feeding my spiritual needs. So when looking for a different church, and upon doing that, found the church that I'm currently at. And it's a good church, very biblically sound. And that's kind of what I wanted, what I needed to help build my spirit up. So it's kind of where my spiritual life led to, and couldn't be happier. And it's filled with good people, And of course, a lot of these people I'd met along the way. Secretary for Thomas's department was a member of this church, him and her husband. And so I've met a lot of good people along the way. And they have come alongside me spiritually, emotionally, those kind of things as well. Sometimes we need that, And I will tell you, the cats have been driving me nuts this week. I don't know what's going on with them. I don't know if the full moon's coming or Maybe it's the smiley face that's getting them all worked up. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with the smiley face, apparently, is it the moon? The moon and some of the planets are going to be lined up on the 25th in such a way that when you look out into the sky, you will see a smiley face, or what appears as a smiley face. So I don't know if that's what's going on with these cats, or there's some kind of crazy polar shift that's going on. And yes, we have had a polar shift, but it's constantly moving, so. And it doesn't create cataclysmic ice storms and all this other stuff, but it does affect the weather somewhat. But it's normal. Earth has been through that more than once. So, you know. But anyway, the cats are acting strange. I was in bed the other day, and I heard what sounded like glass falling. And I was like, what on earth is that? I mean, I wasn't asleep, I was reading. So, I got up to go look. And here's Ronan prowling around. And I hadn't emptied the dishwasher. And I had several mason jars in there. Because when I make my creamer, I put them in mason jars. But I'd had other mason jars that I had other things in, like individual salads, cucumbers cut up, those kind of things, that I'd eaten all those up, that kind of sort. So I'd washed them all. Well, the door was still open. I hadn't put them all away. And I go into the kitchen and trying to figure out what's going on. Of course, on top of that, I've also decided, well, it's time to get to refill the water in my glass. I always take a glass of ice water to bed with me. Get thirsty during the night. No, not real sure what that's about, but I wet my whistle when I get up to go tinkle. And of course, you always got to go tinkle in the middle of the night, just as you get good and comfy and sleeping sound. But all of a sudden, Ronan put his paws up, trying to get into the dishwasher. And I heard those jars make that noise. And it scared Ronan. And what was funny is Ronan jumped straight up in the air and down and took off. And it just had me in stitches. I was laughing so hard. Then I had to go to the bathroom again because I had to go pee in my pants. So, stupid cat making me laugh that hard at night. So I put the things away, then went back to bed, to the bedroom, and finished reading what I was reading. I'm telling you, Ronan has been a hose nose lately. He has been doing this thing, like when I'm in the sewing room and I'm cutting fabric, he will get in the chair behind me and put his paws up on my back. He's wanting attention. And it's like, Ronan, what are you doing? And he just keeps doing that as long as I'm cutting. Then he'll sit in my chair. Of course, when I need to sit down to take just a break from the cutting, does he move? No. He's in my chair unless I scooch him. Of course, then once I scooch him, he looks all indignant at me. Like, I can't believe you did that to me. Moves off to another area, and then I get up to start cutting some more fabric or interfacing or whatever it is I'm doing. He's right back there, and then jumping up towards my back, putting his paws middle of my back, trying to get my attention. He has been rather needy. he goes through these phases. Yeah, my friend was teasing me because, you know, the way that he's been doing and jumping up on my arm of the chair and wanting to be cuddled and loved and that kind of stuff. She starts laughing at me and she said, well, you wanted a cat that cuddled. I said, yeah, but not this much. So it's funny, the way that animals react, that kind of thing, things that they do. I am coming up to where the camera's going to cut off, so let me take a break and we'll get back to you. I know you can't see it, but the weather here, it's just really dark and gloomy. I hope that things are brighter in your neck of the woods. I don't really like when it's this kind of weather, And I was laughing because the other day I'm in there in the sewing room, which is also called the sunroom. And big old cloud came up and thunder and just the briefest of showers. But as I'm working, it started to get dark and I'm like, really? I have to turn the light on in a sunroom? But it happens. Most of the time I don't have to. Unless I'm in there, later in the evening when it's dark outside or dusk. But every once in a while, gotta turn that light on. So what are you guys working on today? I've been reading a lot of the comments, and I know folks don't think that I don't see the comments, but I do see them. I do read them. And I have been hearting them. But here's the problem. With YouTube, many times when I've done that, I come back and later on, it's like it's a brand new message. I don't know what it is YouTube Studio does, but actually it's just not registering. And I had something odd happen yesterday. I was trying to get into Instagram on my computer. I have it on my phone, the app, so generally I don't have to log in. But when I'm on the computer, I need to log in. I went to log in, and I couldn't log in. So I was like, okay, what's going on? So I go around and try to figure out what's happening. And finally, I just sent the link to change the password. Well, I did change the password, but it wouldn't take it for some reason. So I don't know what's going on with Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but it's rather annoying. Makes me wonder what great thing they're going to bring to us. I did notice that I think it's on the Facebook app for the phone. Now it has a little place down there where you can click on where it says friends. You can see what your friends are posting, which is, I like that feature. I do that quite often to go see what my friends are doing. Because as you know, Facebook is after making money. So they're going to give you ads and reels to watch that have ads attached to them or whatever so that they can make money. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. So I've done that. So I don't know if my password changed or it didn't change or what is going on with that. That'll be interesting to find out in the next couple of days. Because it wouldn't take my old password. Wouldn't let me in. Didn't matter if I used username or the email. So, I got nothing. Been working on a couple of videos for the sewing channel. All of that takes time. And I did tell you about the thing with the shawl. The shawl's already gone. And the video was corrupted, and I just didn't bother checking to see before I had deleted it completely. I don't keep old videos, even when I film them, because it takes up so much space. And I don't even put it on a hard drive, a secondary hard drive anymore. I used to, and I thought, I don't know why I'm doing that. If they're gone, they're gone. If for some reason, God forbid, YouTube decides to take away my channel and videos are gone, I'd have to start over anyway. So what's the point of hanging on to old videos? And both Facebook and YouTube, last I heard, are no longer keeping your lives. But I don't know. I do see those still up for other channels. Maybe it hasn't come up to the deadline. I guess we'll see, right? What happens in the near future with that. Because many times I like to go back and watch a live that I missed. I am not someone who likes to go and sit in a lot of lives. Although it's a great opportunity to crochet if you've got it. But I don't always have that time, so I don't always do that. I had, so that's why I like watching the lives afterwards. So I'm hoping that they, give you like a week after the live is up so that before they take them down, if that's their plan in general for storage space, that kind of thing. Who knows? Who knows what these conglomerates do? You do know that YouTube is a conglomerate of Google. It's a subsidiary. So I had watched the supposedly what they were calling the gospel episode of American Idol, where they portrayed it as it was going to be all gospel music. It was not, but that's okay. There was a lot of gospel music in it, and I did think it was cute when Brandon Lake and Jelly Roll, were talking with some of their idols, someone that they've placed as idols, how excited they were. And the fact that Brandon Lake had talked about he'd always been too afraid to try out for American Idol. Could you imagine if he had? That would have been amazing in itself to see that journey. But it's, interesting to see the journey of Brandon Lake as it is today. And I am a big fan of Jelly Roll. I have a friend that is a little older than I am. And she was extremely thrilled about her and her husband getting to go see Jelly Roll in-person concert. And, she just gushed about the concert and Jelly Roll. And she's like, I just love him. And I thought, this is such a strange contrast to see someone, that enamored with a Christian artist. Although some people call him country. I guess he's a country Christian artist. I don't know. I always just thought of him as a Christian artist. But, and to talk about his story, and she knows his story inside and out. And it's just kind of neat to see. We in our area have a conference coming up. It's a women's conference. I think it's Beauty from Ashes or Ashes to Beauty. put on by a local church. And I'm sure it's just local speakers that they have coming in. I mean, I haven't seen any announcement about anybody like Lisa Harper or, Nancy Wagamoth, whatever. I can never remember her name. I just call her Nancy. So it should be interesting to see that. They do offer meals and snacks. It's a $10 charge at the door, but you get a free t-shirt. Who knows what the t-shirt will say? I'm sure it'll be interesting. I do have a friend that used to go to the church that I'm going to now that attends this other church. So I'm kind of hoping to see her there. I don't know if we will or not, but I would hope that she would show up. I do know that her husband and her do make t-shirts, screen print t-shirts, so I'm wondering if they are making the t-shirts, which I think would be a great boon to their business. And I don't know about you, but I'm beginning to wonder if TikTok is ever going to be sold, or if they're just expecting the president to keep extending, the time that they can continue to run. I have a lot of friends telling me that there is quite a number of Chinese people who are really desperate to sell their products directly to us from China. So, really cheap. And I think, I can't remember what one of the videos had talked about, that the cost of something that we purchase for like $45, $50, for the Chinese actually cost them 20 cents to make. And I thought that was rather interesting. But then again, we forget that most of those people do not receive an income that's any greater than $12,000 a year. Most of those work for $1.20 a day, work day in, day out, every day. Kind of like slave labor. But, and the sad thing is to hear that there are so many of these younger people who don't have a job, don't have purpose. I don't know if you've ever followed things in China. They will build a whole city that has no population in it, just to give people a job, to give them income. So, yeah, but it's rather interesting to see some of the things that are coming out with that. And they claim it's because of the tariffs and, but basically they've cut off trade with the U.S. U.S. kind of has cut off trade with them, sort of, not really, but it's hurting them financially, which is sad. But this is the way that this Chinese government chose to run their government, and, the way you choose to run governments affects people, regardless of what country you're in. It can be good or bad. But there's a fellow on TikTok, I think it's the China Observer, or China Observer 2, something like that. but he's exposing a lot of things that are happening in China. I follow a fellow who, because he is bilingual, I think he's actually trilingual, but he will get news from different places that are coming out. Like he was given the example of Panama Canal, that in the news there, they are predicting that the Panama Canal will be given back over to the U.S. They're saying it outright in their news in Panama. Basically also that President Trump was right about China owning like 600 acres plot in Panama, and they pay no taxes and, all kinds of things. So who knows? But supposedly those will be hitting the U.S. coming weeks, that kind of news. But we'll see. It's kind of like this when Rachel Morin's mother, they had the press conference at the White House with her. You had news agencies like CBS, I want to say, no, NBC and CNN, I believe, who did not broadcast that news conference, and they chose not to for whatever reason, and probably because she outlined what exactly happened to her daughter, 37 years old, with this illegal immigrant who raped her repeatedly, brutalized her, but they chose not to air any of that. So they selectively are choosing what you can and can't hear. And that's censorship, and I don't like that. Then you have the whole thing. I have friends who are just raising a ruckus, and they're all left-leaning, about RFK's press conference when he talked about the autism spectrum and some of the statements he had made. And they claimed they had watched the whole thing. And when I pointed out to one of them, so you watched the full hour and a half press conference about that? Well, no, it was only about 10 minutes. I said, then you didn't watch the whole thing. You got the snippet that the news agency wanted you to get so that you didn't get the full story, what he was talking about. Because she was complaining about there are a lot of autistic people that do great things, that go on. They're able to clothe themselves, bathe themselves, take care of themselves. Yes, that is true. But there is an extreme end of every spectrum of autism that they cannot take care of themselves. They cannot talk. They poop in their diapers and they spread the poop on the walls, to be clear about what happens. Not only that, but they are unable to bathe themselves, care for themselves, feed themselves. Yes, that is the very end of that spectrum. So there is everything from mild autism to full-blown spectrum. So they're not talking about those that are in between. He was talking about the worst of the worst. It's that way with a lot of diseases, a lot of people who fall into Asperger's, ADD, ADHD, you name it. There are always spectrums. You have one goes from mild to the most severe. And that's with everything. So just if you're looking at those kind of things, be sure that you understand what the whole thing was about. Whether it was just 10-minute snippet to fit a news agenda to degrade everything that this administration does or not. And I got to tell you, some of the things that this administration has done, Democrat administrations have done, and more so, harder, yet everybody's okay with it. So it just boggles my mind how people are so led and so blinded by their politics that they cannot follow that there's a spectrum and they're not always telling you the truth. It is what they have for their agenda. And you know, ever since they took away the Smith-Munson, I think it's Smith, not Munson, Munson Act, which Obama did away with, it allows news agencies not to be 100% honest in their reporting. That is just the way it is. That act probably needs to be brought back or something like it so that if you are saying you are a news agency, you have to present the facts as they are and let people decide for themselves instead of going with an agenda to sway them one way or the other. Yeah, yellow journalism. So yeah, those are some crazy things going on in our world today. And we just have blinders. We only see what's in front of us. So, I don't know. I have gone into the tote with some of the other bags that I have projects in that might stored away. And I had thought about bringing out another one to start working on, but I've changed my mind. Simply because I need to refilm the video for the shawl, but also because I have all that yarn back there behind me and a full bag of yarn that was donated to me that I need to find something to do with it. So I am planning on working some things up with that. I think for some of that scrap yarn, I will go through it and determine what can be used by itself, maybe for hats later on or something like that, you know, that I can use certain colors. And some of the others, I will just probably do one of my scrappy blankets, holding them together. You know, in the past, I've held black yarn with the different colors, or white, or off-white. But I don't know if I'm going to do that this time. I think I might just hold two colors together and do that. So we'll just see how that goes. But I really want to work on getting that one tote that we opened up and I've not gotten to. I've had a lot of people adding to my yarn stash and I need to get it worked up. I also had planned on doing a couple of things with the adding machine. I haven't had an opportunity to get that out. I think that'll make things go quite a bit quicker. So that is kind of something that I am looking at doing. Whether it be hats, scarves, or panels, you know, to put together for a blanket or whatever. Or maybe a sweater, I don't know. I saw where someone did different size panels and put together a nice, colorful, or what I would call a coat of many colors sweater top. So maybe I'll just work on doing something like that. That might be fun. Just to see where it goes. Of course, it would be an extra warm if I used tubes instead of panels. But I think maybe I'll do that with some panels and just kind of work it out and see how it goes. See, I'm already planning with all that yarn. Haven't even got into it. All right, guys, I think I have talked on long enough for today, so I'm going to let you go, and I will see you again on another day. Everybody have a great week, and remember, do something kind today. Bye.